Just rip it and win.
Oh, what'd you win?
20 cents off my next wasabi fries.
20 cents off the next order of wasabi fries!
Tonight you will get your dick ripped off. That doesn't sound right, does it? Is that a prize?
Rip it and win. At Wong Burger, when it's right, it's Wong. Some customers may get their dicks ripped off.
Right there!
Hey everybody, it's Ignignot. So I'm in PC Building Central over here. Had some problems, so I kind of had to bail on this. I'm waiting for parts. In the meantime, I have news about the Unico Nova Blast. I can't ever fucking remember what this thing's called. I don't have a Facebook account, but I was able to go ahead and figure out how to somehow get past their little security telling me I can't reach it. No, I don't know how to replicate it, so I'm very lucky to be able to see this. Long story short, unfortunately I was right, and the Nova Blast Candy Cab is delayed until July. Yay. July, in case you can't remember from yesterday's video, was the month in which I stated would have been the people getting pissed to the point where they're going to potentially cancel pre-orders because it's so far away. And I was hoping for June, but I said that that was probably unlikely. Yeah, I guess I was right. So the reasonings are kind of interesting. Seeming as I actually mentioned most of these problems to them, and they seemed really dismissive at first. So the first problem being the monitor converter board. So the 4x3 LCDs that they're currently selling have been having a lot of issues for people. These monitors are so that you can take this monitor, replace a CRT monitor like in a real arcade machine like my Galaxian over here, for example, right? And put in a 4x3, modern 4x3 monitor, not have to deal with, you know, replacing capacitors or tubes or anything that's going awry with your display, and just call it a day, move on with your life. Of course, it's not going to be the same as having a tube display, but, you know, it works, and for a lot of people, that's all they really care about. The problem being is that a lot of games have not been displaying properly, namely games like the Mortal Kombat series and just some random ass games like that. A lot of Namco and Midway boards, which is interesting that they're specifically pointing out Namco, Midway, and ITS, because I've seen people complain about the latter two specifically. And I made a pretty big stink about this when I was communicating with them several weeks ago, asking about compatibility, because I have a lot of Namco boards, and I wanted to make sure that they displayed properly. And they seem to be fairly ignorant of this, and now it looks like they're not. Conveniently, just a few days, you know, before they hit the shipment date that they promised people on their product, instead of months ago when I sent that email, and they could have changed things. And at that time, they were already getting complaints from customers, so I'm not really sure what's going on. I can only assume that they knew the problem was existing months ago, and they tried fixing it, but it wasn't going to be enough time for them to figure that out. They're claiming they need 2 to 3 weeks more to complete whatever updates that they're doing. I don't know how that translates to July, but okay, fine. 2 to 3 weeks. From what, I don't know, but let's just say it's from today. That would be in May. Whatever. We also made updates to our custom JAMA board to ensure complete support for our kick harness portion, which caused a minor delay in production. This one really pisses me off. I specifically, and I have people who will probably comment, who I am friends with in real life, who will probably comment on this video saying as much. I specifically reached out to them and said, do you have proper kick harness support? I'm not talking about CPS2. I'm not talking about, you know, anything simple like that. I'm talking about for random individual Namco boards, System 11 type boards, you know, those type of boards, and Capcom boards that are not CPS boards. Do you have support for that with a kick harness? And at first they claimed that they didn't know what I was talking about, and they're like, that's just Jam Edge, you just plug it in, it works. I'm like, no, it does not. It has a specific kick harness that you need to go ahead and plug in. And I even sent them pictures. I have my rival schools here, in which takes the same sort of plug that goes into a CPS2, and yeah, gives you extra button support. And then I also showed them pictures of this little thing, and this plugs into my Namco boards and allows me to use this cable here, which also gives me kick harness capability on my Namco boards, namely my Tekken boards, for example. They seem to pretend like it was just going to, after a while, they're like, oh, well, of course it's going to work. It's going to work with everything. Everything's fine. I even, Jake, if you're listening, I remember even specifically telling you, okay, after like several emails back and forth, they're claiming it's just going to work. Yeah, well, no. No, and no. Look, am I glad that it's being handled? Yes, because I'll be honest with you, if the main boards that I have, which are in there or here, wouldn't have worked out of the gate, I'd have been really upset, because Namco and Capcom non-CPS boards are my main reason to play my PCBs. These are the games that I love the most. So if it wasn't going to work in this machine, it wasn't going to work for me. So like I said, I'm glad they're addressing it. Number one, I mentioned this literally last year to them. I'm not sure why only now it seems to be a big sort of surprise, unless they didn't have access to those boards to test, which actually raises another question, which is how many boards physically have they tested on this thing, and how do they know what works and what doesn't? Are they getting other people's boards to test, or what's going on? I have no idea. And then the next one, which doesn't really mean anything to me too much, but they're working on a final metal base. So basically the podium, this part that the bar top sits on, because it's technically two separate pieces, kind of like an arcade 1-up, but not shit. They're working on a new design that supports 3 doors in the front, one for the coin mechanism, one for holding spent coins, so it'll be on the back side, right? And one for the main door to access inside the base, which I've already seen revised versions of, and apparently there's like a wood shelf inside, which is nice, because previously on the main website, it just shows like a giant, like this entire thing just being a giant basin that's just empty, and there's no shelving for you to put anything on, and being that this thing is made of metal kind of makes me a little freaked out about putting those things on there. I know that there's feet on these things to make sure it doesn't touch, but I don't like the fact that it's metal, so I like the fact that they added a wood shelf in the middle. That's all great. But again, these are like last minute changes they seem to be pushing. Anyway, so it says that they're going to start manufacturing at the end of May. So I guess 3 weeks from now would be like, yeah, end of May. And in the middle of June, so I guess it's from end of May to the middle of June, and they're going to start shipping via cargo container, which will arrive in USA around July. Now, I also caution on this. When they ship in via cargo container, that usually means to their distribution plant, not to you. So it's going to take even longer from their distribution warehouse to your door. So you can add a few more days on top of that, depending on where they are versus where you are. So if they're in California and you're in Maine, you're going to wait probably another week and a half or whatever that's going to be. If you're in Arizona like me, then probably not so long. I'm assuming they're in California. Everything's in California when it comes to shipping, but who knows? So there you go. Bad news. I really didn't want to have to report news like this. I'm very sorry. It's not my fault. I'm not happy. I'm very disappointed in how they're handling this. Like I said, I'm happy that I'm not getting a Nova Blast that's going to come in and it's not going to work with my shit, or it's going to cut off the picture of my arcade games, because that would have sucked. Genuinely sucked. A non-functional product for as much money as I spent would have been rage-inducing. So I'm glad they're avoiding giving me an aneurysm. That said, when you go out to make a device like this that specifically is meant to not only connect to HDMI devices, but to real-life, original arcade PCBs, one would think you would be smart enough to understand that not only do you have to make sure that they display properly on your newfangled LCD 4x3 screens, but that they can go ahead and connect to not only the main board JAMA edge, but to whatever kick harness it needs in order to fully operate. I don't know how they're in this business, and no less than me, and I'm a newbie in this, until the last month scheduled for shipment date. Yeah, also, they're not on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. They're not posting this information on their YouTube account. It just seems to be only on Facebook. I didn't find it on our website. Doesn't mean it's not on there, but their website's kind of jank. And specifically, if you go ahead and look on their website, there's a bunch of filler text from like stock website template that they have on there that they never filled out. So it's like, this is where you place your welcome page, that sort of blank text that you have. Yeah, so their website's kind of jank and incomplete. So if I missed something, I do apologize, but yeah, that's it. So the good news is that we will be able to play arcade games like this. The bad news is we're going to have to wait. And we will only know how well this is executed until they start filtering into our homes and to review sites. Yeah. So we are the guinea pigs, I see. I think what they should have done was place the pre-orders a year away, brought this thing to way more conventions, and had this thing publicly showing way more stuff, tested way more stuff, brought in way more boards. And when little things like this came up, we wouldn't have known about it because they would have been months away and they would have had time to pivot. Instead, they gave us an extraordinarily short deadline simply because they had this shell and this screen made, and I guess they thought that they were further along than they were, and they kind of screwed the pooch. So mid-year, further past the mid-year, 7 months in, and hopefully we'll get this. Fingers crossed there won't be another delay, and fingers crossed it works. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you at least happy that we're not going to be going through a stressful situation like the people who have these 4x3 screens that they bought on Unico site? I mean, I guess that's the only silver lining here, and the fact that, your games will potentially work. I'll tell you this much. I'm very happy I got that computer because I can at least tell you this much. That thing will work properly regardless of whatever issues that they have with their display or their kick harness support via JAMA. So at the very least, I know that if any one of my PCB boards does not work, it'll work via that thing. And my humble suggestion to anyone watching might be to go ahead and invest in such a thing in case one or more of your boards will not work on day one. They're really not expensive, guys. A couple $100. Think about it. Picnic not out. See you guys next time.